Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 13th episode of the Women Startup Leader Series. In this series, key female ecosystem players from Bangladesh and beyond will discuss phases of angel investing and all things startup. In this episode, we have Deeksha Ahuja as speaker, Ahmed Yusuf, advisory lead at Bangladesh Angels, and Ariana Khan, analyst at Bangladesh Angels, as moderator. Deeksha Ahuja is the founder at Encubay. With 9 years of experience across edtech, food tech, beauty tech, media tech, and healthcare tech, Deeksha wears many hats as an entrepreneur, consultant, investor, collaborator. She is committed to enabling growth in the startup ecosystem through diversity and sustainability as driving force behind her work. Founded in 2020, Encubay was launched in collaboration with Greenhouse Capital Africa that aims at bringing up the percentage of women in the startup ecosystem from the current 14%, which is dismal. The launch saw great success, with over 500 startups worldwide applying to be part of the inaugural cohort. The Angel Network aims to create a collective of women who want to invest in women-led startups, thereby increasing the funding that is being provided to diverse startups. The network was founded in partnership with Deeksha's co-founder at Encubay, Yashita Maheshwari, and 3 other accomplished women investors and founders, Ankita Vashishta, Jayarupa Jayabharati, and Anisha Patnaik. They facilitated their first angel investment in Ready Set Jet, a beauty and social impact-led company founded by Shalini Vadera. The investment was done from some of the top women in the country who were partners at the largest VC funds. The network is also preparing to announce their second investment, and they aim to also provide access to smart capital to any startup that they invest in through the networks that were built at Encubay.
It's so lovely to be here and be connected with people from all over the globe. So I'm super excited, Ahmed, Ariana, and everyone who's joined us to share a little bit about my journey and why I feel so strongly about diversity.
Thank you, Deeksha. Thank you for joining us today. So we usually like to start off these sessions with your background, and so when you were younger, what did you aspire to be, and where did you grow up?
I've actually been across different parts of India as a country. Been in Delhi. I'm originally from there, but I've also been in Bombay, Pune. And funnily enough, I don't think I ever wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was very studious. I literally topped, my school almost every time. And I was pretty convinced that, I'd go to a great college and then go for my master's and probably settle somewhere outside. While I did end up going to a very good college, St. Xavier's in Bombay, at the time when I was graduating, I think that's the best part when you're in college, because, I think the process of elimination works the best in figuring out what you're really good at, right? So what I ended up doing was interning, working at a lot of places, finance, private equity. I worked with a bunch of startups, real estate. But I think by the end of 3 to 4 years, I realized that I wasn't cut out to do a job. And while everyone was graduating, most of my peers were either going abroad for their masters or picking up jobs with top consulting firms. I had offers from Google and McKinsey as well to work, but something inside me just wasn't, keen on having a job and being a small fish in a big organization. I've always been someone who's been super, driven by creating impact. And what I couldn't figure was that how can I create impact for so many people if I just take up a job, in a fancy organization? Because your work should positively influence not only yourself and your immediate family, but a lot more people and the world around you, right? So I think that was the trigger point where I said that entrepreneurship does seem like something that could help me achieve my vision of creating impact. So yeah, Ariana, that's kind of how the journey started.
Really nice. So moving on, could you tell us a bit about your past experiences working in the startup ecosystem in India, especially, working across such a diverse array of sectors? You've worked on both the buy side as well as the sell side. So what was it like for you, especially being a woman?
Absolutely. Back at the time, around 2011, 2012, at least in India, the startup ecosystem was very nascent. We were just about, beginning to see a lot of people kind of run companies, but, I would say less than 10% of people graduating. So it was definitely challenging. And my first venture about 9 years back was in the edtech space. Now, edtech today is very, very talked about. It's one of the most invested in sectors. India per se is the largest edtech market globally, right? But 9 years back, people didn't even know the term edtech, right? And I remember them kind of turning back and questioning me and saying, hey, why does education need tech and innovation? I was, a true believer of the fact that I think the education system, at least in India, was very redundant, not much innovation. And the way that the world was moving, you needed children to have a lot more skill sets for them to be professionally and personally relevant. So that's how the journey started. My mom's been an educator, so a lot of inspiration as entrepreneurs we derive from, people in our houses. So she was the main inspiration, and I wanted to solve for this. When you start out building a company in a sector that doesn't have a playbook, the only thing for you to do is to go out, network, join other startup communities, talk to other founders to actually see what they're doing, and could you probably pick up something or learn something from them. There were very few communities about 9 years back, and even rarer was the number of women in these communities, right? Like when I started off my journey, I could really count the number of women who were founders around me because that's how rare we were. And I remember going to events, like say 100 odd people and maybe like 1, 2, 3 women founders, right? So that kind of, really disheartened me. Luckily for me, I came from a very broad-minded family. I did not personally face any gender biases at home. So I did not have an issue, going out, talking to people, because I knew that the aim was to get my startup ahead. But I did realize that a lot of other women were holding back because, of such sort of disparity in numbers. So challenges were there. You are creating for a sector that doesn't exist, and you're competing in a world where there are very few people who really look like you. So it was challenging, but I think the lessons learned and what I'm doing today with Encubay would not have happened had I not gone through that journey.
Shifting gears now, to move towards the Encubay Angel Network, would love to learn more.
Sure. Just a little bit of background, right? In my entire journey, one of the things that I faced as a female founder was that, and I rather viewed this, not only through my journey, but through journeys of so many other women founders who I have interacted with, mentored, consulted, or worked with even, is that most women founders, end up lacking access to good quality networks, right? Now, as an entrepreneur who's just starting out, your network is your biggest asset, and that's what kind of gives you that strategic push and pull. But in the absence of a good quality network of experts, mentors, corporates, investors, it's kind of very, very tough for you to really crack the code at an early stage, right? Capital is key to growth. While I'm not saying it is the most important thing, it is definitely, one of the things that you need to have if you really want to grow your venture. And having kept that in mind, I kind of realized that the amount of sort of capital that was being invested in companies that were run by women was considerably lower, very, very lower, compared to their male counterparts. And this seemed to be a global phenomenon. Now, at an early stage, you generally do after your friends and family round, you end up doing angel investments, right? And if you kind of dig deep into the data of who these angel investors are, how much money they're pumping in, who are they backing, you'll realize that very few angel investors are women, and even fewer angel investments are in companies that are run by women, right? So that was kind of the thesis on which we built the Encubay Angel Network, where we wanted to have, create a high quality network that female founders and funders could access, and of course, channelize new money towards these startups.
Thank you for that. And so just diving in deeper into EAN now, how many members do you have at the moment?
So the member is about 50 members strong. Currently, we operated for the past 5 months as a very invite-only network. And there are a lot of women who are partners at VC funds or are successful founders, women in corporates, or a lot of women who are also managing their family business money. And the way that sort of we look at it is that we want people to come here who can add just more than capital. Money is very commoditized, right? You can raise money from anywhere, but what matters is how smart that money is, and how can the investors that come onto your cap table actually add value, as to your growth and even in securing the next round, right? So the network is, in fact, just about 2 weeks ago, we opened up memberships formally to a much larger audience, but currently it's like a 50 members strong team, and they're both men and women. So we encourage women to invest, and a lot of our messaging is around getting more women to join the network as funders. But we also know that you can't solve diversity without involving men in this. So there are some amazing men who are part of the network who want to, they're on support a lot of female founders.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as like we mentioned earlier, we're also in the process of creating a women's chapter for Bangladesh Angels. So would love to learn more about how how it's structured in terms of the modality. And you did mention the membership. So how do you sort of sustain the organization?
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? And let me kind of give a little backstory to why I thought that this is something that could kind of fly. When we had Encubay and when we were supporting a lot of these female-run companies, and some of them were brilliant companies, and unlike a lot of sort of stereotypical biases, people think that women only run traditional lifestyle businesses or businesses around just food, fashion, lifestyle, but you'd be surprised to see the amazing amount of innovation that women do across sustainability, across tech, mobility, across consumer tech, femtech, fintech. And so many of the women in our network sort of started reaching out to us and saying, hey, we love what this founder is building and we love how you're supporting them. We'd like to invest. And this was very intriguing because if you could, India has a lot of angel networks, but none of them really speak to women. And if you just look at even women, when they talk to each other, they seldom speak about investments. So we saw this as a big opportunity and said, hey, this is a good way for us to also educate women on angel investing, and that's how the entire modalities of the network is kind of formed. And so the first thing that we have to crack is just awareness and literacy, right? What we realized was most women did not understand the fundamentals of angel investing as an asset class. So that's the first thing that we focus on, right? Actually exposing them to what angel investing is, how much of your portfolio should be allocated towards investments in startups, right? And you can't do that without network access, right? So creating a high quality network of other members, other men and women who could be your peers, potential angels, or experienced angels who you could, sort of learn from. Once you kind of get entrenched into this entire system, we very regularly run a lot of upskilling masterclasses, on simple things, right? Even things like how do you evaluate a company? What are some of the things that you see before you kind of create or build your investment thesis, right? How can you help a startup more? How do you build your portfolio of the angel investments, right? How much should you put in per company, right? So we do a lot of masterclasses around that. And like I said, right, I think creating high quality networks and getting women to meet like-minded women where they can talk about these things is very, very key to what we're doing. So meeting other women investors, knowing that they're not the only woman in the room who's an investor along with so many other men, was very important for us, right? Deal flow and investment opportunities, right? As I think one of the most important things when you put out a network or when you're convincing a potential investor to invest is that are you going to give them access to good quality deal flow, right? Because today there are a lot of startups and there are a lot of funds, VCs, angel networks, right? But how do you get the best startups to actually come and want to take money from you, right? Luckily from us, we're about 5 women who came together who each got experience of at least 10 years in the ecosystem. So just because of our credibility and some of our organic reach, we have so to speak, access to excellent quality deal flow, right? And then, of course, the ROI, right? While, I kind of feel that a lot of the investments that women end up doing, also they want to invest in other women because, somewhere subconsciously that's the cause that they want to contribute to. But it also is a very sound financial and objective investment for them, right? And the minute they see ROIs coming in, they're more confident about investing or even referring their friends. So that's kind of the modalities, Ariana, of how we put it together.
Got it. And I think we can also take inspiration for that as we structure our own women's chapter. So moving to the next question, how many companies have you supported so far and where are they based out of? Like, do you have a specific focus in terms of, are you sector agnostic or do you have a specific industry focus? And how many do you plan to support if there's, a specific number that you have in mind in terms of?
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of answer this question in 2 parts. I think support is, divided into monetary and non-monetary support, right? Now, we set up Encubay before we formed the Angel Network. Encubay runs as a global diversity-focused network, kind of mimics what an incubator does, but specifically for female-founded companies. Our criteria is very simple. We work with startups that at least have 1 female in their founding team, which have majority or equal stake in the company, are of course scalable, sustainable businesses, sector agnostic businesses, and of course VC investable companies, right? We are a global network, of course, because we are based in India, about 60-65% of our portfolio is of companies based in India, but about 30 to 40% of the companies we support are based out of the US, UK, Singapore, Korea, so on and so forth, right? But there is a strong you can say relevance or connection with the Indian market. So either these founders want to have teams in India or they're actually, creating sort of solutions for the Indian market, right? Because we are such a big market. So that's what we do in terms of support. A lot of companies that approach us now, every company isn't ready for investment, if they think they are. So we support them through helping them with their growth map, helping them become investment ready, getting them some strategic partnerships on board. We offer over $1 million in credits to each of our startups that are curated from people like HSBC, AWS, Zohos of the world, Freshworks, so on and so forth. And then at a time when they are investment ready, we do work with them, get them to work on their pitches and present them in front of the network. So far, I think Emma did mention our debut investment was in a company based out of the US, seasoned founder, American by birth, but Indian by nationality. She now is actually, creating an entire global footprint. So we're helping her set up shop in India, but even some other parts of the geography. As we speak, we've just completed the 2nd and 3rd investment too. And one thing that I'd like to point out is that we also support companies that are run by men for the reverse reason. And very funnily, a lot of my male founders who I know as friends, they reach out and they say that we know how important diversity is, but sometimes male founders don't have enough women in their network to onboard as advisors or investors. So that's how we solve their problem, because I think diversity works both ways. So our 2nd investment is in a company which is a SaaS tech platform for a lot of smaller businesses run by men, but now because we funded them, we've got a few women on their cap table, so kind of balancing those diversity numbers too.
Interesting. Who were early champions that supported the cause, and what were some bottlenecks you had to overcome for Encubay?
So I think early champions were a lot of people. So I'm someone as a person who really believes in creating very strong relationships with people. I think a relationship can never be transactional. Even if you want to work with someone, you have to build it over time. We had some amazing women in the ecosystem and men, who've either been partners at VC funds, who've been successful founders, who've run accelerators for companies like Microsoft and Google come and kind of support us initially. So that was very encouraging. Having said this, what we launched, in 2020, 2021 was a big, factor of what we've been doing for 5 years. So I have been very active in the ecosystem myself, trying to figure what to do. But I just think this entire virtual world was very, very lucrative and very, very encouraging for women to kind of take the forefront, because you no longer needed to have a location or time to be present. So those were some of the early supporters. In terms of challenges, I think I can write an entire book on that. And the first one being that and I think this still happens, that whenever we speak about the fact that we are diversity focused as a network, whether to support founders or whether to even invest in, people think it's a social cause. And I like to kind of correct them and say, I said, yes, I know that, there is a social implication to getting more women to, start participating in the professional workforce. But this also makes great business sense, right? I mean, there is enough of theoretical data to prove that companies run by women have higher ROIs, are a lot more innovative in what they do, or other diverse companies, right? So that's been a bit, been a big challenge. And I think secondly, everyone wants to bet on things that they've seen work in the past. We've not had so many success stories of women, right? It's only today we have like the Canvas of the world getting $40 billion valuations. And now I think, the time and the footprint for a lot of women founders is changing. And soon investors and VCs will come to that. But till we get to that point, people will cross question, people will not support. But I think it's a matter of just sticking true to this. And at least the next 10 years are very bullish for a lot of women founders across the globe.
Absolutely. And I can totally relate with the former point you mentioned about, simply about the social cost part, that, people simply supporting or investing in a company just because, it's women-led or it's women-focused. But no, there is actually a business case for it. And, just taking a human-centered approach when you are, thinking of investing in any company, I think that's important. So, moving on to the next question. What sort of, what kind of pre-investment support do you provide to your to these companies in your pipeline or in your portfolio, and what's the playbook there?
So, no matter how much information is out there, I truly believe there are two sets of people who think very differently, right? Investors and founders. And that's only natural, right? So I think one of the most important things that we help is we be the bridge between founders and investors, right? Because we come from both sort of both sides. So we understand what entrepreneurs want to portray, but we also understand what do investors look for when they are making an investment decision, right? So in terms of any pre-investment support, the first thing is, of course, helping the entrepreneurs get their pitch right. In terms of what they say, how they present it, how they present their future goals, so on and so forth. I think that's very important. And more than often, we feel that working with the entrepreneurs for a good month or so on just helping them get that right storyline is very crucial, because you need to understand whether today you're an angel or you're a VC, you are going to be pitched by a lot of founders, right? Where I can tell you that, hey, I would love you to spend a little bit more time towards female founders. You as an investor are going to take an objective decision, right? So it's very important that founders say the right things at the right time that make the right sense. So that's what we kind of help them with. The other thing is a lot of times what I've also seen is founders don't very much understand what taking investments means. how they should be, and kind of looking at their cap table, how they should be looking at their growth strategy, how they should be planning their next raise, should they be raising in tranches or not, who should they be picking up the money from, who would be a strategic investor, right? So through the means of our network, not only do we of course have some amazing angels on board who we make sure that if they invest in a company, they're also adding more than just money. They can even introduce founders to people in their network for accelerated growth. But at the same time, we work with a lot of micro VCs, family offices who like to co-invest with us, right? So whether them coming in at the same round or the next round, right? So that is kind of a little bit of matchmaking that we end up doing, Ariana, on a pre-investment side.
Got it. And so moving on to, that was pre-investment, but what sort of post-investment support do you provide? How was it structured in terms of, the business development? We often see, when VCs or even angel networks invest in these companies. So what sort of, support is there for your portfolio companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So very rightly said, I think we're one network who actively works with the founders, because I think it works two ways, right? As investors, you only have a business if the founders do well. So if you're not part of that, if you're not part of helping them build that, it's very tough to see a return on your own investment, right? So we actively help them to achieve their growth goals, and we do this through multiple ways, right? Helping them cut down costs. So, and giving them access to credits, like I said, from some of the top tech companies, across, cloud services, hiring, recruiting, marketing, legal assistance, so on and so forth, banking. The other thing is also actually helping them sort of get a lot more strategic partnerships or deals. So we work closely with a lot of big corporates. Now, big corporates engaging with startups could be through maybe, giving the startups a, opportunity to do a pilot, do an MVP, or to even onboard them as vendors, right? So we kind of facilitate some of those deals. And then, of course, when the founder wants to raise their next round, we actively sort of, forefront some of those discussions, because that's the network that we built. And we all know that when it comes to raising, it's all about the relationships and the references, right? Today, as a VC, I might get 100 mails, but if I get a mail from someone who I know, I'm going to make sure that I pick it up, right? So those are some of the post-investment sort of, help areas that we focus on.
Got it. And, moving on to what's the approach to realizing exit potentials and opportunities for your portfolio companies?
Right. So we look at exits in two ways. One is, of course, as angels, you do end up getting exits on the subsequent round if it's a larger VC round. We try to liaison with VCs, when we are making investments, so that they know that this is a sector or this is a company that, we're bullish on. And the second is in terms of acquisitions, right? We're seeing a lot of acquisitions happening, either through very well-funded startups or even through a lot of corporates, right? Who then want to have some of these startups become, the next gen innovation paths for them. So we try and liaison that not only in India, but globally too. Right. So, for example, if as a network, we do have a very strong focus on, femtech or D2C, right? So we'll make sure that we know enough people in the ecosystem, and we're able to kind of pick and put the products or the services that our startups are giving along with a much larger play, right? So we do that, we kind of keep a balance. There are some deals that we go short on, which means that we already know that this founder is in talks for raising their next round. So the investors will get an early exit and a good one, right? But there are some deals in sectors that we like to go long on, right? Where we want to build up that entire sector, get about 3-4 companies, and then probably push it to a larger fund or a strategic, acquisition play. So that's how, we think of exits.
Interesting. Got it. And I think the last question that I have before I move on to the next section, which is about women and angel investments, is what is your ideal ticket size? Typically, what ticket sizes do you invest in for these companies?
Yeah, so we typically do about between 50 to 150K worth of investments collectively through a network. But then like I said, we have a couple of other family funds and VCs that work with us. So if we do an X amount, they end up putting at least 1x or 1.5x of that.
Do you have provisions for follow-on funding, and also for exits? Do you have any standard walking periods before any angel thinks about exits or partial exits, especially in subsequent rounds?
So like I said, right, even before we look at, presenting a deal to any of our networks, we do think of exits, right? Now, whether it is through a larger fund or an acquisition. However, angel investing is a risky asset class, right? I mean, no matter how much we plan, macro, micro factors really do play an important part on how those exits kind of play out. So our strategy is mainly to liaison with certain funds, certain, other people in the network who we very closely work with and we know have similar thesis, right? I think it's about being connected. But at the end of the day, we're very, very transparent in telling our angels that, look, 9 out of 10 times, you are not going to be able to see a good exit on this, right? But that one time, the exit that you see is going to be phenomenal, and it'll probably cover costs as well as make you and book you enough profit for all the other 9 investments that probably went bust. So we try as much, but sometimes we have to leave things to fate, because at the end of the day, there is a part that luck plays in angel investing.
Totally agree. I think we also find ourselves, we often have these questions in terms of, the security of investments, right? So that's totally true. Can totally relate to that. So moving on, what are some of the struggles you've encountered working with women startup founders and women angel investors?
So I think, a couple of things that I want to mention when it comes to women founders, and this is, kind of more of my generic understanding over the past 6 to 7 years. And I don't think this is, it's not about being right or wrong or, not good or bad. It's just observations, right? So, if you look at women founders, most of them, when they start out businesses, they don't actually think their businesses can really become big, right? So some of them really restrict their visions or think that, they could only grow a business to X level when the business could actually go 10X, right? The second thing is, a lot of females don't even think and consider that they can raise external money to actually scale up their business, right? So once you get your model right, once you get your unit economics in place, you have market validation, and the only ingredient for success is putting in more money to scale up. A lot of women don't even consider that, right? So that's why some of the growth is stunted. And then, of course, the third thing, like I mentioned before, right? Most women are not the most well connected. They don't like to talk. They don't like to talk about what they do until they've really achieved something, right? Which, in my mind, as an entrepreneur, you should talk about what you're building every day, right? Because people need to know you. They need to know who you are, what you're kind of solving, for them to actually trust the products or service you're launching. Because no one will trust your brand unless they trust you first, right? You are the first sort of gateway to creating that credibility for the startup that you're into. So those are some of the things when it comes to founders, right? And I constantly always encourage all women founders to go out there, network with people, talk about what they're building. And women, I understand where they come from, because we have limited time. So they feel like, why should I, talk to someone or tell them about what I do? Let me just focus on building. But, it's as important to tell the world. Right. And I think today with social media, you can use platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse to really amplify your reach and be smart about things. In terms of women investors, I think the biggest challenge is that a lot of them don't have too many forums and people who they can talk to. So today, as an accomplished woman, if I don't understand finance, I feel a little shy to actually go out and ask people, hey, what do these terms mean? What does exits mean? What does cap table mean? What does it mean if someone's raising on a safe note? What's a value cap? And because they don't have access, or they don't have a safe space to find out what these things mean, they actually kind of don't end up making the effort to to invest, right? So it's very, very important to go out there, to own what you don't know. No one knows everything. And actually look at it as a learning curve, right? So we all have things that we're great experts at, and we all have things that we don't know. So women should not feel bad about the things that we don't know. I think there's a lot more people who we could give knowledge to and take knowledge from.
Absolutely, that's some great advice, and I think many of us can learn from that. And so you've spoken a lot about the importance of credible networking. We're just talking about it. So what is your advice to maintaining stable, healthy, and fostering relationships, especially for women founders and as well as angels?
Absolutely. So one is, I think, today it's become a lot more easier virtually, right? With platforms or social media. So the one thing that you can do is, be constantly active on at least one platform of your choice. If you're someone who doesn't have the time or the inclination to be active on all platforms, at least pick one and try and reach out to people there. Try to create sort of like a thought leadership image about yourself, right? So just giving my example, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but probably not as much on Twitter or Facebook. But on LinkedIn, I make sure that I at least post 5 to 6 times a week. And I talk about things that I am an expert at, which is, of course, diversity, investing, entrepreneurship, or even networking, right? Now, what happens is that kind of ends up letting people know that, you know something, and there is possibility to network, right? So keep yourself open to networking. Put a couple of hours every week that you set aside towards networking. And whenever you are doing that, don't make these relationships transactional, right? Don't go with the mindset saying, oh, this person works there, this is what they can help me with. If they don't, then I'm not going to speak, right? No one's going to help you unless you're going to help them, or you're going to actually open up your network. So make sure that you do that. And I just posted a video on LinkedIn just about yesterday where I said networking is like investing, right? You have to make investments for you to see kind of long-term returns, right? So I think those are a couple of things. It's really important. And when you start doing it, of course, you have to give it time. In due course of time, you start realizing that your everyday job is easier because now you're more well networked.
That's an excellent advice, and I think I myself can take lessons from that. So the next question I have is, what is your take on gender lens investing? Do you have any framework that you follow to bring in gender lens investing for your due diligence process, and how important do you think this is?
Well, since we are a diversity-focused network, definitely, gender lens investing is one of our strong thesis areas. What we do is we at least look at having 60% of our investments into companies that are, female founded or co-founded. Remaining 40% could be, non-female founded, but we actively encourage those teams to become more diverse. And we facilitate that actively because we bring on women on their cap table. We bring on maybe women as advisors on their cap table, and we help them maybe hire better talent, or, talent that's consisting of women. So that's what our thesis is. But in general, just talking about GLI, I think the most important thing is that in the construct of your investment team, it's very important to have a good balance between men and women, right? And most VCs are very male dominated, which is why there's such little investment in companies that are run by women, right? So VCs really need to rethink their construct, because before they invest in diversity, they have to maintain diversity in their own sort of teams, right? So I think gender lens investing starts there. And once you have a well-balanced team, you have women on the team, you have men on the team, you will understand sectors that a lot of men don't understand, or vis-a-vis. And slowly, entrepreneurship will become gender agnostic, right? I mean, to be honest, it doesn't have anything to do with gender. It's just that there are so many deep-rooted biases that we need to do a lot more to actually, level the playing field.
Oh, no, I love that. I love that. So yeah, for Crossborder Angel, so as you know, Encubay is a cross-border angel network, which is helping across pollination and investing. So what's your take on cross-border pollination and investing?
I'm very for it because I think the world is shrinking and becoming very small, and there is only sense in figuring out how you can leverage each other's markets and communities, right? So even as a platform today, even though we are based out of India, and that's why we started, our first investment was in a company based out of the US, right? Because we want to use our network to help her set up shop here. And likewise, we want to make sure that our female investors are investing in companies overseas too, right? As we speak, we're already planning a launch in Dubai. And we're also looking at chapters across UK, US, and Singapore. So I think cross-pollination is very important because, today, if I'm an angel sitting in India and I want to invest in Dubai or Bangladesh, I need to have a network there who I can talk to because they understand their geographies and I understand my geographies, right? So how do I make sure that there's transparent and very quick access to information on markets, on investment trends, on what's going on, without having sort of cross-pollination? So it's necessary, and I think it just makes the most best investment sense in my in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, as we also look to, create chapters for Bangladesh Angels across our pockets of geographical areas where our members are based out of, I think that's something that we can also learn from. And yeah, so the next question I have is, how have you thought about engaging in cross-borders or say women's only angel investment network for Southeast Asia specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. We are very bullish in that. We are in talks with a few people out of Singapore, out of the Philippines, out of Thailand as well. A lot of women there. And what I love about collaboration is that today, if I am part of a network and I see value in it, I'm also going to want to join it if I get access to women across geographies, right? Or people across geographies. So we are constantly on the lookout to liaison with such networks. And at the end of the day, I think, like I said, right, diversity is a man and woman problem, and it's a global issue, right? So if we don't do this at a global level, it's going to be very tough for us to see the impact or the impact scaling up to the level that we want to, right? So we are bullish in Southeast Asia. I think collectively we are one of the largest consumer pockets. We are one of the largest, sort of also hubs for innovation, right? Largest hubs for young population. Some of these trends really make for a very strong market, right? And definitely we can see trends of a lot of countries in the West wanting to invest here because here is where the growth is going to happen now, right? So you are going, the delta that you end up making on your investment is much higher in a quicker amount of time rather than some developed nations.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. In fact, as we also look to, like I said, create the women's chapter for Bangladesh Angels, which is in the works, would love to see, how we could support you or collaborate with you for 100%, that.
100%.
Absolutely. And yeah, so in terms of ecosystem development, what sort of, policies or levers will enable this? Because there are definitely still a lot of challenges within the ecosystem globally when you want to, engage more with female investors. So what sort of, policy frameworks will enable more females to join in?
So in terms of I'm not sure too much in terms of policies, but definitely at a smaller level, what you can do is, or what organizations can do is, try to see how they can involve women in some of these important discussions about money, finance, investments, growth. Right? Most of the times when you see panels or you see events like this, it's like, one woman there who's just as a token, right? But I think we need to encourage more women to be actively part of these discussions. we need to also, as an ecosystem, create safe spaces for women where they can come and talk about, learn from each other, so on and so forth, right? Because only once we start encouraging such sort of conversations can we see, women referring other women, or women organically wanting to do something in this space, right? And we also, lastly, need to really ask the men in our networks to step up and to get the women in their life to join or be part of such things, right? I think that is the most important and the easiest, quickest way to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are your future plans? And is there any advice for women investors and entrepreneurs who are joining the startup ecosystem? And that's one. And two, do you plan on scoping Bangladesh as a market for your entrepreneurs and angels? And how can we help? How can Bangladesh Angels help?
Thank you so much. I love that you guys have, and born to listen to everything that I just said for the past 60 minutes, and also offered help. I'd love to connect and see. I think Bangladesh and India, we're neighbors. I think there are a lot of synergies. Some of our sort of consumer trends are very similar. Some of the challenges we face are very similar. So I think it just makes a lot of sense for us to maybe, figure out a way to work together for our startups to leverage your markets vis-a-vis, right? That's one. In terms of any advice for women, I just want to say that, trust your instincts. Don't, a lot of times we discount ourselves and say, hey, I don't want to talk about myself. I haven't done so much. But the truth of the fact is that most men, when they talk about, the fact that they've done something, it's very small. But the fact that they've spoken about it is what brings them the limelight, right? So I want to encourage women to talk more about what they do, to go out there, network, take a lot of risks, right? I mean, as female founders, it's okay to fail. As an investor, it's okay to fail, because failure is nothing but a hiccup, right? And you are going to kind of learn through that journey, right? But unless you're on that journey, you're never going to know, right? So yeah, those would be my 2 bits of, sort of words or advice for women, Ariana.
Got it. That's lovely advice.
I think this was a really engaging session, and thank you so much for the time, Deeksha. I just had one last bit, right? When you started out, and I know that Greenhouse Capital had been helping out, right, initially.
Yeah.
So, what was the relationship there, and how did you sort of foster that into Encubay, and what came out of it?
Absolutely. So Greenhouse Capital is an initiative, or rather, based out of Africa, that is looking at, again, solving for lack of diversity in Africa. And they run a female-focused accelerator there. So we reached out to them to just understand their learnings, their frameworks. So when we were launching, they helped us in terms of, some of their playbooks, guides, know-hows, and we had the network and the, sort of credibility in India. So that was the relationship. But soon enough, when we understood what to do, they'd kind of given us sort of an understanding into how do you create these programs and stuff. It was easy enough for me and the team to kind of pick it up and take it forward. So they still continue to do some great work in Africa. That's where their focus is, and of course still remain strong allies of what we do.
Amazing. I just wanted to understand, did you ever look into the African market as a potential to invest through the
In fact, funnily enough, we were just having a conversation with some of our angels about it, because a lot of people are making bets on Africa, especially from India. The way that I look at it is, Africa still needs to create a very strong infrastructure, right? Whether it's in terms of, transport, IT, technology, medical, education. And there are a lot of private companies and private groups with a lot more wealth that are doing that. A lot of Indian groups also doing that, right? My hunch is that in the next couple of years, when some of these infrastructures are a lot more, so to say, stronger than what they currently are, we'd love to kind of explore opportunities, cross-border relations, even bring some deals, right? But currently our focus, at least, for the next, 12 to 18 months would not be on Africa as a geography.
Yeah, got it. And even in the note of cross-border pollination and investing, right? Do you go through your diaspora members or, even diaspora Indian communities to actually look
absolutely.
into.
Yeah. A lot of our members from UK, US, Singapore, Hong Kong, they're all Indians, but are either, settled there or, have some sort of connection to the country, either directly or, through work or colleagues, right? So we definitely reach out, but we are a very global network. So, we're open to people joining us from, all sorts of countries, cultures, and races.
Excellent. I think that is it, pretty much. But thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Ban, and Ahmed and Ariana. It was lovely to be here. And
absolutely. No, thanks so much for hosting this and being part of this journey. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Deeksha. Bye. I look forward to working with you as well in the future.
Absolutely, for sure.